shamwari.
Chokwadi pasi pano taiona moto marongera wanoita wepanyika.
Yellow, 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 yellow.
The leadership that's supposed to be in front, the standing committee, please come up front, and so that we are able to be seen. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting. We have invited members of the Fourth Estate. I want to thank the members of the Fourth Estate for coming at such a short notice. As you know, we advertise that we are holding our constitutive meetings. I do understand that some of the members of the press were saying that the president, Mafume, and the president were holding meetings on their own. I think this dispels that rumor. I don't want to use words like malicious, but as you can see, evidently we have been having meetings not on our own but with the other leadership of the democratic contingent. But we want to thank you for coming. It was short notice. For that I apologize, but we are reconstituting the party and we should be able to get back to our normal programming within the shortest possible time. A lot has happened, and some of these meetings had been suspended for quite some time. I would want to acknowledge the presence of the President, Professor Woshmenyue, Vice President Lynette Konye, Chairperson, Karenyiko, sorry about that. The Chairperson, Sisu Zai, Secretary General, Charlton Wende, and the rest of the leadership, the organizers. Maybe they might not organize a meeting again. Yeah. the two of them, our dynamic organizers, and the rest of the leadership. For out of abundance of time, I will not do the salutations, and these are the National Council members that were able to make it. We were supposed to hold it at the weekend, but because of other pressing commitments, we brought it forward to the midday. So we'll do that. But what we did is we had a standing committee, a national executive, and the National Council, which we have interrupted for us to hold this press conference. I shall read some of the resolutions that we've come up with that are both external in the main and selected internal resolutions. The rest of the resolutions will be given to the press in due course. Resolution of the National Council meeting held at Harare on the 19th of June 2024. Concerned about the deteriorating economic situation and its impact on the suffering masses in rural and urban Zimbabwe, saddened by rising employment and the precarious nature of informal economic activities, as well as the galloping poverty among Zimbabweans. Further concerned about the impending ravaging impact of the El Nino and how it negatively affects food security for the majority of Zimbabwean population households. Further concerned about media reports pointing to widespread corruption associated with the awarding of tenders to benefit a few elite in Zimbabwe. The opaqueness and the lack of transparency within the tender processes, and the beneficiaries seem to be from a selected group. Observing that such corruption is rampant in the mining sector, where minerals are illicitly exported, depriving the country of the necessary impetus for sustainable economic development. Concerned about the continued deterioration of national infrastructure, such as roads and railway lines, that undermine the prospects for inclusive development. Noting the state of the Citizens Coalition for Change Party as a vehicle for the democratization agenda in Zimbabwe, and indeed its commitment to the resolution of the national question. The external continue, noting the recently held elections and the need for electoral reforms and the need to bring to a closure the issues around the electoral crises and repeat crisis in Zimbabwe. Also noting the deteriorating human rights situation, issues of detention, issues of arbitrary arrests, and issues of the need for people to express themselves and assemble themselves in the manner which they wish to. Noting the hasty departure of the then President, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, on 24 January 2024, leaving the party in disarray and in crisis. Further noting that the crisis of the party was worsened by the recall of members of parliament and councillors across the various local authorities after 23 August 2023. Appreciating the need to stabilize the party built on the 2019 Congress resolutions and agenda, and the need to deal with the national question through democratic and collective decision-making, inclusivity, and leadership cohesion. Concerned and acknowledge that the party had swayed from its founding values of democracy, participation, inclusivity, solidarity, equity, and equality, and the emergence of splitter opposition formations in Zimbabwe and the likely implications of such. Appreciating this, thus the responsibility bestowed upon the party to provide hope and solutions to the challenges faced by the majority of the Zimbabweans, the National Council met in Harare on the 19th of June 2024 in Harare and made the following resolutions. External resolutions. That the government gears itself towards protecting the vulnerable people, both in urban and rural areas, against the impending effects of El Nino-inspired drought. That the government, through its relevant arms, fully investigates reports of corruption in the awarding of tenders and ensures that all attended issues are dealt with. Internal. The National Council mandates the leadership of the party to do everything in its power to stabilize the party and bring the same to restore collective decision-making, accountability, transparency, and respect for internal democratic processes. That in preparation for the forthcoming Congress, the party begins in earnest a process of rebuilding from the branches right up to the national level, guided by the organizing department and in terms of the 2019 Congress adopted party constitution. That such process be as inclusive as possible to accommodate all the Democrats who fell by the wayside, fatigued, discomforted, unhappy, unsettled, and upset by the internal undemocratic practices that encroached the party over the years. That the National Executive is mandated to engage and do everything in its power to re-establish the party as a democratic alternative. That the party re-establishes and be guided by the liberation agenda, principles, values that guided the liberation struggle of Zimbabwe, underpinned by the need to respect human rights, democracy, good governance, and the various rights that are enshrined in the recently passed Constitution. So these are the resolutions that our council has come up with. As you are aware, our council will continue this meeting after the press. We do understand the pressure of deadlines and the need of the press to deal with other issues. If there are questions, they will be dealt with by myself and the leadership collective as led by the President, Professor Welshman Nyewe. There might be other resolutions that I might have left. We will include them as we speak. Thank you.
May we kindly just request you for a brief address from the just if it's possible.
For a brief address?
No, it's fine. We will answer the question. Address whatever.
Yeah.
I want you to just,
If
if you may indulge us, say,
yes,
just a brief address from your desk.
Yeah, what you will do is you will include the brief address in the answering of the questions if there are other.
Maybe our questions might be motivated by the address.
Okay.
Just ask a question.
Let's have.
Just ask a question and then.
You will answer. I promise that you will answer.
The question is, is the president able to address us?
Yes, he will be. The answer is that he will address you, including other questions. Yes, is that another question? Yes.
So you mentioned that the Triple C under Mr. Chamisa is swayed from its principles, and now we are reconstituting the party. How much of the damage did he cause to the Triple C under his leadership? In the view that we are also saying there was a little internal democracy in the party. So how much of the damage did he cause to the Triple C under his leadership?
Okay. Another question. So if I get 3 or 4, yes.
Maybe in terms of numbers, if you may just help us clarify, I need to understand. Since there are 2 major factions coming from the Triple C, how many have been aligned to this specific leadership under Welshman, under President Welshman Nyewe? If you can give us maybe in terms of numbers, we need to just understand how much of the chunk has been swayed in this direction. And number 2, as part of the resolution, unless I missed it, I thought it was a key issue to be dealing with, the Chabangu issue. Is this been an issue that I've been dealing with as the National Council? If it was, what is with the resolution? That's why.
Okay. I think that the 3 questions, President.
Thank you very much, Harare One. Thank you. In attempting to respond to some of the issues, let me say firstly, I am the acting president of the party, Triple C, together with the leadership that remains, which was elected by the owners of the party at the Gweru Congress. The Vice President, Honorable Kore, is here, was elected to that position at the Congress in Gweru. The Secretary General, Honorable Wende, is here, was elected to that position at the Gweru Congress. The rest of the leadership you see here were appointed by us after the Gweru Congress. Honorable Rizai, Honorable Matzimure, Honorable Mateu, Honorable Chitzeva, and so forth and so on. So you must understand that this is the leadership elected at Gweru.
which had the responsibility for the management of the party after the Gweru Congress. The councillors you see here are the councillors who went to the Gweru Congress representing the provinces, the 10 provinces, who were elected by the membership at provincial level. Of course, others have fallen by the wayside, others have left. A political organization is by definition a voluntary association. Those who leave are replaced by those who remain. That's in the nature of all organizations. It's not necessary for us to detail how many, the numbers. They are here, you can see them, take pictures. They were there in Gweru. The reality, you ask about, did we discuss Senator Chabangu, did we discuss what has happened since 22 January 2022? Yes, we did. Yes, we made resolutions on that. We accepted as National Council that we slept on duty. We accepted that the confidence of the owners of the party in Gweru was reposed in us as a collective. We accepted our acts of omission and commission in failing to assert ourselves as the National Council of a democratic movement, timeously. But they say better late than never. We have asserted that authority. We are asserting that authority as the National Council. We have a responsibility to report it to the next Congress what we did well, what we failed to do. And for the owners of the party at that Congress to decide whether they still trust any one of us to continue to repose any confidence in us, or to select from among themselves a different leadership. Our main task, as things stand now, is not only to evaluate the state of the party, to rebuild the party, its organs and its structures, but also as council to take full control of the party in its relationship with the members, in its relationship with the state and state institutions. We acknowledge in this council that the state and some state institutions, from the judiciary through parliament, ZEC, have recognized the signature of Senator Chabangu as the signature representing the party. We acknowledge that, contrary to what some of us have said in the past, that we didn't know Senator Chabangu, we did. He was a member of this body. He was a member of the National Executive. He was a member of the National Council. He attended the fateful meeting of 22 January 2022. But he was not the Secretary General. He assumed that position under strategic ambiguity. Therefore, it behoves us, and we so resolved, we must engage him as council, as a member of council, to resolve this issue. What should be his role going forward? We further resolved to engage the state and state institutions with a view to regaining full control of the party, for the state institutions to recognize that decisions of this party are made by this body and communicated by persons authorized by this body. It is our priority task. Whether we succeed or not remains to be seen, but it is our task. Further than that, you ask how much damage has been done. It's self-evident. I don't know any of you, I can't say because of the lights, among you who speak in Ndebele. There's an expression in Ndebele which says, ubuza inja enduna ikuflathele. You don't have to ask, it is there, you can see. The damage is there. But the biggest damage is how far back this period has taken us in the struggle for a democratic alternative in the country. It will be years and years before we can reset, restore the agenda that the opposition is a democratic alternative to ZANU-PF. That it is the antithesis of ZANU-PF. Not just in terms of what we say, but also in terms of what we do. Our competitive advantage in electoral terms relates to who we are as agents of democratic change. When we begin to look like ZANU-PF, then we cease in the eyes of the electorate to be that democratic alternative. So we are not underestimating the task that faces us. It's huge. The damage has been immense. But this council has made a call to arms. Whatever it takes, at the very least, we must be understood, we must be seen to be the democratic alternative, the party which will ensure that the ideals of the liberation struggle on freedom, on liberty, on respect of human rights. There are compatriots as we speak who have been incarcerated, who by all accounts have been tortured. No one under any circumstances should ever be subject of torture. We may differ with them, in our politics. But we demand that their human rights be respected. We demand that they be not subject to arbitrary arrest. We demand that they be not subjected to torture, which is prohibited across the world. You don't have to be our friend, you don't have to be our political ally to be entitled to enjoy those freedoms. We stand firm on that. So that's what I'm adding to what Harare 1 presented to you as a summary of our conversations. If you have further questions, you will take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do understand you are pressed for time as journalists. So in consideration, I'll probably take one, but I do respect the desire to meet deadlines. But I think the point that we are making is that a journey of 1,000 steps, you begin with one step. We had the democratic ideals that we began from the Working People's Conventions to the point that we are here now, and the various transformations that we have seen us get into government, out of government, build constitutions, not only for the party, but including the constitution that this country is currently utilizing. It is a constitution that we participated in. And in all those processes, we were guided by a set of values. And those values were not personal, they were objective, normative, and in sync with contemporary understanding of human rights, democratic principles, and good governance principles. And it is that understanding where the collective matters more than the individual, where we believe that for anything happens to any one of us, we are living institutions and a country that can continue based on the values that would have agreed with each other and not based on personal issues. So that is where we are. We will rebuild it again, as the President said, and we will take the time it requires. We've done it before. We can do it again. Thank you.
One thing that the chairman reminds me I should speak to just briefly. We debated and discussed the issue of the 2018-2023 elections. We resolved that as part of our engagement with government and ZANU-PF as a political player, we should engage them not necessarily on the outcomes of those elections, but on the numerous observer mission recommendations. There were recommendations that came from internal observers. There were recommendations which came from SADC and the other observer missions, which pointed to certain ills in our electoral system. We believe it is important that we have a conversation with government and ZANU-PF on this, so that we do not get to the next elections, whenever they are, before those critical issues have been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you want to leave now? One last one.
I think this one is a follow-up that has been raised from his just last interventions. It seems he is saying that we are now focused at the results of the election, at the process of the election, not the results of the election. I just wanted to understand from a party perspective, what is your position on the past election? Would you call it a free, fair, and credible election as far as the last election is concerned? Since you are now more worried about focusing on the processes of an election, not the actual result of the election.
It doesn't matter whether it was free or fair.
I want to understand.
I'm answering you. Let's wait for the full answer. It doesn't matter whether it was free and fair. It doesn't matter whether its outcome was legitimate or illegitimate. The fact of the matter is that we have a government which is in control of the country. The fact of the matter is that if we are not careful and do the same mistakes we did between 2018 and 2023, you will get to the next elections with all of those good recommendations unaddressed. We are saying we want to refocus our attention to those. We wouldn't be refocusing our attention to those if the election was free and fair. If the election had no issues, it had issues. That's why we want together as Zimbabweans to look at those observer mission reports and say, let's do what can be done to stop this cycle of disputed election after disputed election, so we keep going round and round in circles. So let's have a break with that part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I think we have reached the end of our session, and then we will continue with our proceeding.